Hi there, I'm the mechanic on Rogue. 3D printers are everywhere today, and they're used to make some pretty cool stuff. But there is a learning curve, and that turns a lot of people off. Maybe that's you today. 3 years ago, that was me. In this video, I'll be sharing my 3D printing experience, with the goal of making it that much more approachable for you. Getting one is the easy part. Actually using one successfully is a different matter entirely. I found that I had two major hurdles to overcome before that happened. Number one, I had to figure out how to actually use the 3D printer. And number two, I had to figure out how to actually print the things that I wanted to print. I got my 3D printer in 2021 with the goal of using it to print custom enclosures for my aluminum air batteries, which is another project featured here on my channel. I purchased an Ender 3 made by a company called Creality. This is what's known as a FDM, or Fused Deposition Modeling Printer, which is by far the most common type of 3D printer around. Alternatively, there are also resin-based 3D printers, which just look like a box from the outside. These are more advanced to use and are mostly used for high-definition models like tabletop figurines. When I got my printer, I did have to assemble it, and since then I've had to open it back up at least a couple times to perform repairs or upgrades. Because this is an open source product, there's lots of information and parts available online in places like Amazon. Some things are easy, like when I upgraded my fiberglass print board to a glass one. Other times, it's harder, like when I had to repair an extruder temperature sensor. Certainly, a good expectation to have if you're thinking of owning a 3D printer is to be prepared to tinker with it. For now, my printer is set up and everything seems to be working, so I should print something, right? Well, not so fast. As much as I wish that I can control this machine with my mind, that's not an option. Yet. I need a model, and I need to slice that model. There's many online websites where people post models that they've created. My first model was an online freebie. It was the One Ring from Lord of the Rings. To slice the model, I used, and still use to this day, a piece of free software by Ultimaker called Cura. This slicer essentially takes the model we want to print and divvies it up into layers, so the printer can make them one at a time. There are tons of settings here that offer a lot of customization. Stuff like wall thickness, infill density, layer height, and the list goes on. I just started out with standard settings and tweaked them as I got more familiar with everything. With that, I successfully overcame my first hurdle, learning how to use the 3D printer. But if you remember, I did purchase this for a very specific reason, to print battery enclosures. I don't think this ring model is going to help with that. Furthermore, my project is very experimental, and no one's really making models for it. I guess that means I'll have to make my own. This means that I'll need to use CAD, or Computer-Aided Design Software, to generate my model. This software is used in many different industries to aid in product design processes. Most of them are configured for professional use, so trying to find something a hobbyist can use was a challenge. In the end, I started with an online cloud-based option that was very user-friendly. It's called Tinkercad. It was also free, which was a huge plus. I spent a couple months learning the software in my free time, and after a couple different attempts, this is what I came up with. I think the biggest challenge is envisioning the design in my head. In any kind of CAD software, I start out with a blank slate and literally must define every single point of the model I'm making, meaning I must envision it in my mind before it comes out onto the screen. When working with something in the real world, I still have to do a lot of that, but there's already constraints that I have to work with, like the materials that I have or the tools that I have available to me. I would encourage anybody who is at this point to keep on trying, even if you fail at first. It may be frustrating to run into a brick wall, but when you do come up with something that works, at least for me, I find it to be incredibly rewarding. So that's challenge number 2 solved. With the concept of CAD software now somewhat understood, I continued to improve my skills. I turned to 3D printing wherever I could. I mostly made practical things like this plug holder or these coin stands. After a year, I got into a professional CAD software called Fusion 360. It's more complicated to use but can make way better models. They offer a limited free version of the program to hobbyists, which I was able to take advantage of. Continuing, I made more holders and stands, as well as an updated battery enclosure, which was a big improvement over the original one. Now I can say 3D printing is a solid tool in my kit. Most recently, I used it to print an adapter plate for an exhaust vent cover on my house. I also made these nice holders for some of my tools at work. By this point, hopefully you have at least a general understanding of 3D printing and what's required to get started. If you do, then I'll consider my goal achieved. If you want to do some browsing, I have links in the video description for my 3D printer as well as all the models I've designed over the last couple of years. I want to say thank you for watching today. If you did find this helpful, likes and comments are always appreciated. But for today, that's a wrap. So, I'll see you in the next one. MGR signing out.